So this video is going to cover, this is the second video of the Sales 101 series. So this video is going to cover the lead to invoice process. So what I've kind of put together to kind of drive this this video is kind of a little bit of a table, I guess, in Visio. So you can see here that we've got leads through to invoice, and I've kind of captured four kind of key things, which is then I'll take you through those some of the things in CRM then. So the idea is that I'll kind of cover the purpose, some key information about the actual kind of entity, some key functionality as well in that sales process. This is all within the context of the sales process, and also just some likely customization areas. So kind of the key thing here is to remember that this is the out-of-the-box sales process. This is not a kind of customized thing. The idea is that it's generic enough for you to kind of put your stamp on it, put your company stamp on it, and that's pretty much it really. So we'll start with the lead. So the lead is kind of the first kind of record type that you'll encounter in the sales process. So let's not open Word. Let's go into CRM here. So stacked menu, we'll go to sales, and we'll go to the lead view, and we'll create a new lead. So the first kind of thing here is to kind of think, what is a lead? Now that's kind of like the million-dollar question to a certain extent, because there's quite a lot of arguments over what a lead is, and the kind of answer is really, it depends what the lead means for your business. They can broadly be kind of categorized into two kind of silos to a certain extent. You've kind of got a lead. Some businesses only use the lead for new business, and so no account exists for that person. Essentially, it's a new business lead. That's really the term that I would call it, and that's perfectly a valid reason to use a lead. That's perfectly fine. Technically, there's no wrong way of using CRM. It's all contextual to your own business. And kind of the second one is a lead is an actual just a lead for any type of business. There's no kind of category on whether that's no association to the account or contact or whoever's bringing you that business. Essentially, it's a potential opportunity, whether that's from a new account and contact, whether that's from an existing account and contact. It doesn't matter. So that's the second silo. And like I said, a lot of that argument surrounds kind of, a lead has to be a new account or a new customer. Doesn't necessarily have to be. There are no rules around this, and you'll even see that the lead form comes with the two forms: existing account and existing contact. Because like what I said at the beginning, it is all completely contextual. It depends on what it means for your business. So before kind of you really go any further, if you're intending to use kind of the lead to the invoice process, is to actually go back to your business, their business, and kind of say, what is a lead for you? There's the lead and the opportunity. A lead is a potential opportunity. There is a qualify in and out criteria, which you'll see in a moment. So those are kind of, that's quite a critical point. The lead is probably the biggest area of contention in the sales process. So definitely want to clarify, and the kind of overarching kind of a potential opportunity, that's all it is. And whether you decide to put an existing account, existing contact into the mix, or whether you only keep it as the new accounts and contacts, then that's a business decision there. And then you want to probably customize the lead form and the process to suit your needs, regardless of which one you do that. So some of the kind of key information I kind of wanted to highlight out is the campaign linkage and the limited statuses for closed. So one of the things then that's kind of key, so I'll just create this here. We've got someone who's interested in quite a lot of cake, and that's me. So I'm going to save that record then. So then what I then have is these two fields here. It's essentially, it will basically search on the name record that I've entered here to see if I actually already exist in the system, and it will also do that to the account as well. Like I said, if you aren't using it for that kind of functionality, it's probably the best thing to probably remove these from the business process flow. But we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth in a moment. So what I mean by linked to kind of campaigns and so on is that you've got a source campaign here. and this is kind of that. Essentially, a lead, you generate leads, you can generate leads from campaigns. Obviously, if you're using campaigns in CRM, whether that's from the out-of-the-box functionality or whether it's from an extension, a marketing extension tool within CRM, the idea is that you capture this information, because what your marketing department can then do is you can then track back how many leads and how much potential revenue you have essentially achieved or gained from that campaign. And it gives gives your marketing department some very insightful information regarding that. It gives them some feedback. How well are they doing? They can actually attribute business to their campaigns then, and that's actually really critical. It's actually one of the hardest bits of information to capture as well, because there's probably quite a lot of time sometimes over a campaign going out and getting the actual kind of purchase order from a sale. And this is why just that by forgetting that, it can actually have quite a huge impact on your marketing department, because it means that they won't get those critical figures to be able to pretty much justify certain possibly expensive campaigns. But the thing is, even if they're expensive and they can be justified, then that's fine, because you potentially could be getting new business in that then later spends even more money. So that's what I mean by campaign linkage. And the limited status is for close. This is just more of an awareness thing, is that when you disqualify out, so let's just backtrack a little bit here. You've got qualify and you've got disqualify. Now this is what I meant when I said that it's a potential opportunity, because again, once again, it is a business decision, the qualification criteria, or if you move this forward to an opportunity. Some of the Microsoft official kind of stuff, kind of exam material and so on, kind of says that this can be often attributed to things like credit checks and so on. If you perhaps on Sarah here, a credit check would happen. If it passed, she would get qualified to an opportunity. The idea is that you don't want to be spending a huge amount of time on cold leads or leads that pretty much aren't going to go anywhere. And you're only going to find that information out if you investigate that leads. And there needs to be kind of an in-out criteria. You need to ultimately make a business decision if you are going to spend more time on that. Start talking products, start giving formal quotes. Because ultimately you've only got a certain amount of time, a certain amount of capacity, and you want to be able to put the most of all that time into the things that are more likely going to attribute to a sale. You get your commission as a salesperson, and the company wins the business ultimately. So that's that whole criteria. So similar to the actual kind of definition of the lead, I would also recommend you actually go back to the business and define what that qualification criteria is. Sometimes it's good to have a business-wide qualification criteria because you're all on one page, but also another possibility is that you could leave that to the discretion of the salesperson as well. Just a kind of probably a warning there is, if you do that, you kind of sometimes may take a lot of responsibility from the lead then, because if someone's got their own qualification criteria, it can be quite hard to kind of make company-wide or at least business overarching decisions to do with things like KPIs or kind of when you summarise leads as an entire business. If people have got different qualification criteria, that can mean that that's quite challenging. So because ultimately you're changing slightly the meaning then of things, but it's all good for discussion. I may be proved wrong in that sense. It's all a business-wide discussion ultimately, and contextual to what you use it for. So we've got some key functionality here, and this is that qualification conversion. I definitely believe this whole, that the out of the box you can essentially qualify in, or you can pretty much disqualify. So you've got lost, cannot contact, no longer interested, cancelled. What I meant by the previous thing in terms of limited statuses is you may want to actually customise that a little bit. It may not be completely what you want, and you can go ahead and customise that there. So this is that whole criteria, what I mean by qualification, which I will do at the end of this section. So some kind of likely customization areas and to enhance is that you may perhaps want to automate that qualification criteria. Perhaps you want to automate it based on a field in the lead. Perhaps you want to implement some kind of workflow or something that perhaps auto-qualifies things for you. So essentially, rather than actually having to make a decision internally in CRM, so you actually could possibly hide these two buttons here on the ribbon, and you can possibly implement a new one to just pretty much move to the next stage or do whatever, and perhaps on some data in the lead it actually attributes whether that's qualified or disqualified out. So and that could possibly help with actually defining that criteria. Instead it's based on data, it's based on actual real information, and that could possibly be a way to utilise that. So That's just some ideas in terms of that. So pretty much in terms of the lead, just kind of a little bit of a run through of the UI before I go ahead and use that qualification criteria, that qualification functionality even, is that you've got this out of the box. What it uses is this lead to opportunity business process flow, which is here. So you've got the qualify, you've got develop, propose and close. These are all to do with the opportunity. Now I haven't technically created the opportunity yet because I may yet disqualify it. So the idea is that you run through this little checklist. So do I want to check if it's an existing account and contact, because then it will be associated to those. Purchase time frame gives you a little bit. These are just some little interrogation questions that you can essentially apply to this lead, apply to this person, this account, to essentially try to get as much information so you can make, if you are keeping it as a decision for yourself, so that you can make this decision of qualify and disqualify. And then you can essentially use it as a checklist, as you can see there, and kind of put some more information on there. It's like a notepad. The idea is that you should be using this, and then it's visible for the entire business to see. So that campaign, I can't stress enough that the importance of that campaign. You'd probably want to move that maybe up here if you want to give it a bit more of a prominent position. And you've just got a few details here about the account as well. So as always, you've got the post activities and notes as well. So the idea is that you would obviously also add phone calls, appointments and so on if you was going to meet these people. So I'm just going to go then ahead and click qualify. And then what that will do, that will essentially close that lead as one. So if I was attributing any KPIs or metrics to that lead, that will go ahead and be changed to one. And then I'll get an opportunity made for me automatically. I don't have to click new, I don't have to do anything, I don't even have to enter any of the data that I've already entered. That is all here. Now also what that will do is also make a new account and a new contact and associated to that account as well, which it has already done for me here. So you can see that it's actually done a lot of the legwork for me. So it is very helpful in that, and that is one of another part perhaps of some key functionality of that actual qualification process from lead to an opportunity. So so that's the lead. So we've pretty much covered everything with the lead, so we'll go straight ahead and go on to the opportunity. Okay, so we'll go ahead and crack on with the opportunity then. So this is kind of just straight after I've just qualified this to an opportunity from a lead. So let's open this diagram again. So for the opportunity, we've got purpose, key info, key functionality, and likely customization area. So what is an opportunity? Essentially, an opportunity is an opportunity for a potential sale. You've actually got it's more it may seem, and to be fair it is, a little bit more data entry. This is what I was saying in terms of the first section, in terms of a lead. You don't want to capture loads of information at a lead stage, because you don't know if this is actually going to be, if this is just someone kind of flippantly telling you that there's possibly £1 million deal that could go ahead. The idea is that you don't want to be spending a huge amount of time on stuff that just isn't going to be any use to you, and that isn't going to contribute to figures, it isn't going to be worth your time. So the idea is, once you've qualified it to an opportunity, it's kind of an indication for you to go, I need to spend some time on this, I need to get some information out of this. And everyone will have their own way of getting information, so that may be phone calls, that may be meetings, this may be a proposal process and so on. And this opportunity is that key kind of central hub to capture that information. So I'll capture information such as estimated close date based on conversations, email, phone, etc. So I think this is going to close at the end of the year, and I think, and actually we'll talk about revenue in a moment, and you've got then the probability as well. So probability is actually an area of customization. I didn't actually include that on my little chart, but probability is an area of customization. People like to use option sets for this. Not a lot of people like to keep this as a free text field, but again, it's up to you if you want to keep this. So the idea is that you can see there on the tooltip that the idea is that you have a 0 to 100 probability of closing that, and then you can attribute essentially as that percentage that you can do that there. One of the kind of things is normally percentages kind of mean something or have a title, and that's normally what gets attributed to those. So you can do kind of slightly better reporting if you do change that to an option set, or another type of metric in terms of analysing probability. A lot of companies use different kind of metrics, different measurements. It kind of goes back to asking information of your business, and you might be kind of thinking, oh, this is kind of, this is supposed to be an out-of-the-box process, but like I said at the beginning, the idea is that this is supposed to be quite a flattened, generic out-of-the-box process. It's appreciative of the fact you will have different processes, whatever kind of industry you work in, whatever kind of company you work in, what processes, it's flexible for your processes. It does certainly do enough of the groundwork for you to pretty much have probably a company-wide workshop with some key decision makers, with some decision people who can make the decisions and salespeople, etc., to kind of contribute to say, what do we class as a lead? What's important to us to attribute a pipeline? How do we track the stage and the status of an opportunity? How can we report on that? How can I tell my manager what I'm doing? Have those conversations, and then they will inform just some very minor modifications for you to then utilise the out-of-the-box, but it's actually geared towards your own business. So I've entered this information. I may want to enter like some current situation. Hasn't got a lot of cake at the moment and needs some more cake. Customer need cake. Pro solution more cake. And it's that kind of information, because the more information you see this, if someone's picking this up for holiday, etc., they can be able to see all the activities, all the information that you've essentially captured as part of that potential sale. And like the lead, you've also got the business process flow here, in terms of kind of a bit of a checklist. So that's kind of the normal stuff. One of the kind of things I did just want to point out is, because I've got the kind of project service and field service solutions in this demo environment, that sometimes the opportunity looks a little bit slightly different. And also, this is still very applicable to kind of earlier versions of CRM, like 2013. Not a lot has changed. It's more kind of fields with the business process flows probably look a little bit different. This is still very much applicable. So kind of try to ignore any subtle differences like that in terms of add to forecast and a few other things. They're not deal breakers. It doesn't mean this video series is entirely useless to you. This is why it's kind of just core concepts. I'm not going to be covering all the functionality. It's just it's the Sales 101. Like I said in my other video, it's not Sales 150. So one of the kind of things then you can kind of also do is you can kind of attribute some product line items to your opportunity. Now, we've not got to the quote stage yet, but one of the cool things you can do is this is kind of then how you can attribute value to your opportunity and how you can get a decent pipeline up. Now, I changed this to system calculated, because then what it means is that this is locked, and it means that then my product line items then attribute to the cost that my opportunity is for, basically. So you can see here that I've got my cake, and we want lots of cake, so we need quite a lot of cake in this one. So we've done 50 lots of cake. So the idea is that this is £500 for this individual, and that's then generating our pipeline. So I can then just continue working on this, and then that's the opportunity. So in terms of some of the key information, so we've got campaign linkage, goal linkage, and the campaign linkage for revenue as well. So some of the kind of key information here then is the actual kind of linkage for the campaign. So the idea is that you've actually got kind of, as providing that you've linked that lead to the actual campaign, which is what I went through in the first section. You'll also then, through the qualification process, actually linked the campaign through to the opportunity as well, which is essentially how you then get that kind of final revenue, pretty much, of your campaigns, and how much money you essentially get from your how much influence your campaign has on that sale. So here we go. I knew it was here somewhere, so let's just put source campaign here. Let's just go ahead and publish this. And it's published. I'm just going to give this a quick refresh. And then what we should see is then our source campaign, which was the ad campaign, is all there. So that's one of the ways that then you link then all that money essentially from your campaigns to the opportunities, because then you get this potential revenue figure here. So the other thing is the goals linkage. So one of the things, now I'm not going to be going, I am literally just going to whip up a very quick goal here. I'm purposely not going to be going through why, because that's going to be in a different, it's going to be in a different video. Cat. And then we don't want a parent goal, we just want we're going to do custom period from January to, I'm just going to say £600 is the target. And I'm just going to do a recalculate. I'm going to do a roll up here. And then what we should then get is that opportunity that we just made, and it's actually also bringing in another opportunity in the system for £10, which we'll actually be able to look on the side, will actually be then calculated in my in-progress money for my target. It's not my actual, because I've not achieved it yet. I've not changed it to an order. I've closed a one opportunity. It's currently an in-progress one. So you can see here in my in-progress one, we've got another person interested in some cake, but we've got another person interested in quite a lot of cake, and you can see how that £510 has been attributed. I've not got any closed opportunities, unfortunately, which is why we've not got any actuals. So this is also some cool functionality. It's out of the box. I've done no customizations to this. So that's one of the kind of really, really cool things about it. So the next kind of thing then we'll go on to is, I'm just going to go ahead and open this opportunity. So some of the key functionality is you've got the products and quote visibility. So this is what this is referring to. So it actually kind of gives you this product grid. This is me just talking to the customer going, yeah, okay, you want some cake, so this is pretty much how much it's going to be. Now, we still don't know if this is going to be a great opportunity or not. This goes back to that client interaction and so on. And I've not yet made a formal quote for this cake. It's kind of saying, around about £500. Do you want me to make a formal quote for you? So you can say that to your superior, your decision maker, to get pretty much the sign off on that, or yourself. It's people like a formal quote as part of the process, and that's a lot of the process. There's some not all scenarios will, but this is that kind of idea that a formal quote has not yet been generated. So one of the cool things about using this grid is essentially you can generate your quotes from the products that you've entered on that grid. So if I just click that plus icon, you'd be able to see here that the cakes will come up. You can see here I've pretty much pre-generated quotes with my products. I don't need to do anything, just put my effective from and effective to dates, and it makes that functionality there. So that's what that is referring to then, that kind of auto generation of the quote. And obviously the quote visibility. So when we do go on to the quote stage, I will talk a little bit more about the likely customization areas, because it's kind of in the context actually of the revision of the quote. So we'll crack on with the area next. Okay, so this is the next section of the video. So we'll go through the actual quote functionality. So in terms of what the quote is, so I've got here that it's a formal proposal of a piece of work associated with the cost, which is what I referred to in the previous section. So the idea here is that I've got this cake. They're like, oh yeah, sure, can I have a written quote for that please? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. I've clicked my plus icon on my opportunity, and this quote has been pretty much pre-generated, pre-populated for me. And pretty much I don't really need to do anything else. I mean, if I perhaps I want to kind of maybe associate a discount to this, so maybe I want to give them kind of £50 off here. Perhaps I want to give them more of a percentage discount there instead. So you've got a few different things that you can do here. I perhaps want a lot of quotes are only valid for a month, so maybe I want to put this in there as well. So let's put this information there, and then I want to just save that. So at the moment I'm editing this quote. It's in the draft status, and this is probably one of the key things, key bits of information, and some of the actual key bits of functionality in terms of that I've identified as the key functionality for the quote is that you've got this kind of inbuilt revision process. So I can edit this in draft stage, whereas if I was to activate this, it's now active and I can't change it. I can't edit this. And it's got this kind of inbuilt mechanism for the revision. So you can see here that I've got 0 as a revision ID here. And if I click revise, what it will do is it will essentially then increment that revision ID by 1, and then keep that as a draft status. So if I was to just refresh my opportunity here, we'll actually be able to see then that previous quote, and we'll be able to see the new draft quote as well, in line in that subgrid of the opportunity. So you can see that here. So if, say for example, the prices we're getting kind of incrementally decrease. You will be able to see that as well, and we can even sort by it even. So that's that kind of whole concept of the revision process. It's quite interesting because it gives you visibility of are we spending too much? I may be spending so much time revising my quotes and having, because the idea is that you're probably going to have an independent process for printing quotes, which kind of goes on to that next part of the process. Is a standard report is actually available for the actual quote, which you can see here that I did run a report on the extended menu here, and did quote here. So if I was to just go to this report, so we have actually got a pre-made quote. It doesn't look very pretty in the slightest. It's a very common area that actually gets kind of customized, and the idea is that then you can then export that out to different formats here. It's better than nothing. It's a starting point. You can even go in here into the out-of-the-box report system and start modifying that even. So you do have some capabilities of that. So the idea is that I don't want to be spending so much time having to give all these, and certainly a client doesn't want to have a huge stack of quotes on their desk either. That's part of the sales process. It's part of that negotiation. You don't want to decrement it by £5 or 5% for the next 10 revisions, but the idea is that it gives your company visibility, and you can actually probably do a little bit of a revision process. You've got some data there that you can attribute and you can kind of pull through in some way, whatever way is appropriate, to actually identify perhaps reasons why you've revised. That's possibly something that you can add on there. Another thing that I've kind of said that is a likely customization area here is a better quote report. And so we've just gone through the kind of run reports in the latest version. You've actually got available Word templates, and this is a very common thing that you can then actually customize a proper Word template. You can put your logo on it. A lot of quotes are actually done in Word, so this makes a lot of sense. You can put T's and C's in there. You can actually put quite a lot of static information in your Word templates, and then the idea is that then you just simply need to do some very minor edits. It will pull through your products. You can actually iterate and pull through your product table in here, and that's where you get quite a lot of value then out of the actual out-of-the-box process, even with another out-of-the-box process, which is the Word templates. So I'm just going to go ahead then and activate this quote. So then the next section then we'll look at the order. So pretty much that's the idea is that then that's the kind of quote and opportunity. The opportunity and the quote process. Now the idea is that they will live together. Kind of the opportunity will always be open. You can have multiple quotes. Now some businesses actually may have multiple quotes at once. Someone may say, can I have one quote for 5 cakes and another quote for 10 cakes, then I can go to my boss and actually look at the 2 costs and then go ahead with one. That's perfectly fine. You probably need to tweak a few things. One of the things actually that I said I promised I'll go through is this thing here. So this is that possibly likely customization area. One of the challenges is that the opportunity isn't actually updated. So if I was to do a revision and actually increment this cost above what I originally put in the product line items here, it won't kind of update. So one of the kind of challenges is actually perhaps implement in a workflow or something that will actually, in the latest kind of quote or the most expensive quote or perhaps based on the revision ID, whatever kind of mechanism you want, to actually update perhaps the opportunity with an increased figure so that your pipeline is always up to date if you are reporting on opportunities for your pipeline. So that's possibly another question, is essentially what do you actually report on for your pipeline. So that's quite key information there. So the idea is that then until the client goes, actually, do you know what, this is the quote that I want to go ahead with, please can I proceed with that, here's a PO number. And that's when then we will hit the create order button. So I'll pretty much cover that in the next section. So on to the order. So let's just take a quick kind of retrospective look at the order. So the idea is that a client's here gone, I want to go ahead with that. Essentially what you want to make now is a confirmed work order. Theoretically speaking, you should have a PO or something, some kind of agreement from the change between a proposal to an order. Now you could have kind of policies that perhaps the PO isn't immediately required and it's just required after a certain amount of time and so on. That is definitely a discussion to be had. So let's go ahead and make one. So the idea is that I've got an active quote here, so I'm going to go ahead and click create order. Now this is where essentially you've got a dialog process here that will go ahead and this opportunity here and this quote, these are the ones that are linked. I want to also, you can put some description info in here. I want to also close the opportunity. Now I can manually put some revenue in here, or I can actually say it's calculated from the quote. So essentially take the quote information and actually update the opportunity there as well. I do have the option to don't update the opportunity as well. Again, it's a personal preference. This is set as default because this is probably the most common one to use, because otherwise you'll have to go ahead and update the opportunity yourself. So perhaps maybe if you want to you want to go ahead with multiple quotes, that could be a reason you don't want to update the opportunity. But I'm going to go ahead and close them both and make an order for me, because that's essentially what it will do. It will go ahead and close the opportunity, close that quote, and then make me an order, populate everything for me if I've got my product grid here, and all that information there as well. So the idea is that really kind of nothing really happens here. It's to be fair, like quite honestly, the order and the invoice are probably the least exciting parts of this process. Some kind of points to just kind of raise here is once some key info. Once the actual order has actually been closed, this kind of fulfillment functionality, it can't be reopened. So the idea here, so you could do this in using the SDK and so on, but kind of easily through the UI. It's not easily done through the UI. Certainly from an end user's perspective, it's not. So the idea is that you've got this kind of fulfillment kind of functionality. So I can go click this here, and it will essentially auto close this order for me, and that's when it will essentially make it read only, and you'll see the status change at the bottom. I'm not going to do that yet because I want to show you the rest of the functionality of the order and the invoice. So similar to the opportunity and the quote, I'll leave that open for the time being. Some of the other information is that invoice management. So what you can kind of then do is you can actually click create invoice, and that will make you a new invoice. It will keep the order open. The idea is that you can actually have multiple multiple invoices for an order. So if someone has perhaps a payment plan that could be possibly divided by 12, divided by 6 months, whatever's been agreed, you could possibly create 6 invoices kind of for that payment plan, for example, and then you can complete that invoice. The order will remain open. So one of the kind of the cool things that then you've got then is that you can essentially go back and have that kind of visibility for the order that's for. So it is very good functionality. You can kind of go back and see some of the previous kind of links, like the opportunity and the quote and so on, from the order and the invoice as well. So that's that kind of visibility for the invoice, and if I go down here you can see then, so if you was to have a payment plan, this could be quite a key view, something you could possibly pull through as a subgrid. So some of the kind of key kind of changes, you may want to kind of maybe add some warehousing functionality here if you've got an integration with an ERP system, or if you've got integration with a warehouse or something. Perhaps this whole fulfillment and warehousing, you could possibly have linkage for taking products out, link it to the product catalog, for example, or you could have also some roll-up invoice information to have. That's quite a popular one, to actually have some roll-up fields that are very easy to implement in the latest versions of information, perhaps how much has been invoiced and so on. Just some roll-up fields for visibility. That's quite a popular change as well. So that's the order. I'll go into a little bit more detail about the invoice. Up with the invoice. So let's kind of go back to our table here. So the invoice, again, representative of how you're using this this solution and the company's kind of policy and so on. Generally speaking, an invoice is an invoiceable section, if that's a word, of a piece of work. So this is what I was saying about how that you could possibly have a payment plan and so on. You could it's something that could possibly link to another system and things like that as well. So the idea is that this is something that's chargeable to the client as an invoice. It's an official kind of record document that can possibly get sent as well. So that's something to also consider if you want to actually make a Word template, or actually make this, perhaps this is your only system, and if this is the true representation of an invoice, perhaps you want to do and extend this using reporting, which I've actually not included here. It's actually a really good idea. It's something that you could possibly utilize. So that's pretty much what an invoice is. So just previously we went through the whole creation of an invoice. Just to kind of just cover that, I just click create invoice on an open order, and the idea is that then it will generate that. So you may want to kind of edit the statuses here, add some more information, like more of the PO numbers and stuff like that, more of that kind of pertinent invoice information really. The statuses were quite key because they are actually quite limited in terms of the things that they do. So this is kind of being brought in from the project management solution actually, so that's just something to bear in mind there. So if you was to kind of, essentially the only kind of pieces of functionality on an invoice are ticking off that it's paid, or if you want to kind of cancel it. Now this kind of partial functionality and complete has always been a bit of a bugbear of mine, because it may be the case of well, once you've done it as partial, and that's sort of it, you kind of then have to make another one, and it can kind of get confusing. Perhaps this is like not paid, but it's still there. Like, you don't want to cancel it. I mean, that's like going, oh, I want to invoice you, but now I don't want to invoice you. And it's kind of feels a bit of a waste of time, but then it may not be paid yet. Maybe there's some other kind of, it feels like there's stuff missing there, and that's kind of, overdue. An invoice can be overdue. That's a normal status for an invoice. Things like that. Perhaps that's something that you could possibly implement on maybe a scheduled workflow, something like that. That can also be a way of extending it, but that is quite limited there. So that's just something to bear in mind. So some of that key functionality, so you may kind of want some functionality for marking the invoices paid. So this is kind of some kind of automation in terms of some checkbox in that to actually go, yep, I've paid it, because one of the kind of things that's quite good for the system, for a CRM system, is for other people in a business to actually see when it's paid, and it does kind of boil down to really what other systems you're utilising. If you're using other systems, and this is where some of the likely customization areas may come into, you may want to use that and sync it to another system and sync it back again, so you've got, hey, this is paid, and account managers and salespeople can actually see if there's overdue invoices available as well. Finally, kind of something that you may want to automate in the order and the invoice itself is to actually auto-generate things like the payment terms. If the order does actually mean, oh, this person's got payment terms, maybe and it's over 6 months, and it's an even distribution, perhaps it's something that you can go generate batch invoices, and it actually creates 6 of those invoices, as opposed to, and you will have to manage, and if you don't customize it, you would have to make those 6 invoices manually. So that's kind of really it in terms of the very basic run through of the leads to the invoice process. We kind of covered the purpose of them, what they are, some of the key information and some of the key functionality in those. Kind of did want to include that whole kind of likely customization area, because it really is an appreciation just to have that this is a generic kind of lead to invoice. This isn't geared for your business, this isn't geared for someone else's business. This is kind of a flattened kind of sales process for you to actually go ahead and have a look to see what these things mean to you, and then customize them, whether that's majorly or more in a minor way, to suit then your business needs. So yeah, I hope you found it useful.